let's make a start. All right, welcome everybody. This is a discussion on VAR, and we're going to have it as a discussion. I'm not going to moderate. I'm not going to be asking questions. All three of us are just going to say what we want, respond to each other, make our points, and just in general have a discussion. If you have any comments or questions you want to add, just add them down in the comment section on Facebook, and we'll have a go at answering some of those as well. So let's start off. Let's just start off with a personal comment about VAR. So I'll start. My comment on VAR is, I think there's a place for it. Because some people just don't want it at all. But I think there's a place for it. For instance, you've got goal line technology, I think could be done. I think other sports have managed to use it effectively, like tennis, NFL, football. I just think it's been totally and utterly misused in the way they use VAR in the Premier League. And I think it needs some drastic changes for it to be even close to being effective. That's what I think. Who's next?
For me, I'm gonna start off with the waiver to all the people out there that are referees. This is not a dig so much at them, but more so the game that we all love. Goal line technology, Mike, I think you're absolutely right. Probably, I think the best thing introduced to the game in years. The VAR was obviously something that we all complained about when it was our team not getting the goal or certain things. And I think now it's turned into a little bit of a fiasco where it's taken 6 minutes for them to make a decision, and there's still human error involved.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Alex. My view is there are reasons for it. There is a need for it. The game is so fast, but the way it is handled, it's like the Premier League, especially the Premier League, I think, acted in a vacuum and didn't even look at what other sports do and how they handle it and how well some of them do it. So especially with what calls like the goal line, where it's not subjective. You know, part of the issue with soccer is we have so many subjective calls that even with VAR, you still get it did hit his hand, yes, but it wasn't handball, or so I think it should be restricted to objective calls that are black and white.
Well, I think that's how the NFL started with their replay technology, wasn't it? It was just on certain calls. Now they've added it a little bit more. So now they've added it subjective calls like pass interference. And that, look at the abomination that was this season.
I know you're a football fan as well, and so am I, although I have to watch the Browns every week. All the officials the officials in that case just changed and started calling holding on the play instead of pass interference, because defensive holding wasn't reviewable. So They just changed how they called it. And I think that's what happened with VAR in soccer as well. In the Premier League, the refs stopped calling things, thinking, well, we'll get the right call from someone else.
Well,
when you go back to all three of us grew up obviously back home, all going to games, and I remember being on the terraces, and a referee's bad decision was part of the game. It was part of the excitement. It was part of the unknown. It was everything was kind of a reaction. Whereas now it's almost taken the life out of the game, because a team scores a goal, they all stand around. You got a referee with his finger on his ear. Then you've got the whole debate, and you've got 40, 50,000 people that are they're just waiting. And I think that's the part of the game where, yes, I think we need it to make the game as fair as possible, but it's just the process. It's just too long.
Well, let's look at the process then, because that's where I think they've made, as Barry said, they've done it in a vacuum. They could have easily looked at other sports and taken, what works in those other sports, like the NFL, for example. The NFL, to me, I think this would be the one biggest change that I think that would help the most. It wouldn't solve the problem of VAR, but I think it would help the most. This one biggest change, and that's what they do in the NFL. So the NFL, a foul happened. The referee calls a touchdown, and they review it. Now, the way they do it is the call stands on what the referee has called, unless there's clear evidence that it wasn't. So they don't do that with VAR. In VAR, the linesman may call offside or not call offside, and they'll review it. And they don't. The linesman's call is irrelevant now to the review. They review it, and they review it to thousandths of a millimeter or whatever they do it to, and figure out if he's. And that can take 2, 3, 4 minutes to try and figure it out. Now, the way I would do it is say, okay, the linesman's called offside. I'm going to look at this. If this is reviewable, I'm going to look at it, and I've got 1 minute maximum. If I see that it's clearly not offside, I'll overturn it. If I can't see that within 1 minute, the referee's call stands. And to me, that would be the biggest and easiest change that they could make.
I think if you watch other sports, cricket, I know a lot of Americans may not watch cricket, but you guys probably do. They have a margin of error built in to the replay. If it's that close, like some of those offside calls where it's a big toe, Sheffield United, particularly a couple of times this year, it was literally if he'd been wearing size 10s, not size 11s, he would have been onside. Then that doesn't get reviewed. That says no, that's close enough that it's the official's call.
That's a good point. I like that. Good idea. I love that, actually.
And it should. My issue with it is you're taking away. Supposedly, the referee is in charge of the game. You're now taking that away. The VAR makes the call. They don't recommend to the referee what to do. They actually tell the referee what the call is. So
do you think there should be no VAR then, Barry? Are you all for getting rid of it?
I am perplexed about it, because when you watch other
oh dear. Quality, Barry, quality.
You've seen my posts on Saturday mornings, haven't you?
That's what I look for. On Saturday mornings, I won't be watching any games. I might be busy working or fishing or doing something. And I just keep looking at my phone for Barry's comments on Facebook about VAR, about what's happened this time.
The fact that you can do that shows it's badly run, yes? I mean, that's...
Oh, we know it's badly run. Everybody knows that, yeah.
I was lucky enough before this shutdown that I could actually sit on the couch all day Saturday and watch games all day Saturday. So I wasn't just watching my own team. And I'm a Man City fan. We've had enough of VAR to last a lifetime. And I think I see that because that's who I watch most. I'm sure other clubs think the same way. But they've taken away the control of the game from the referee. You see them not making calls anymore. They go, okay, well, we'll play on. And if that was a close call, why can the referee not turn around and say, hey, can I see that call again? Well, I think that is a close call. I'm not sure. Can I have a look at that one?
I totally agree with that, Barry. I think the referee should be in charge of VAR. I think, well, yes, now I say that, I'm not sure, because they may see something, crazy off the ball that he hasn't seen. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but I like the fact the referee would be the one, if an offside is called or if a goal is scored or something like that, and they want it reviewed, he says, no, I've made my decision. I think that's clear and cut. We're not going to review it, and off we go.
Yeah. But guys, do you think that FIFA came out with a 93% correct call from VAR? Do you think that's good enough? 93% compared to where the game was before?
I don't think it's that. I don't think that's the right question, Alex, because I think, taking 5 minutes to get a correct call is bad for the game.
Right.
So I don't think it can be just based on, okay, well, they've got 93% correct. They've made 93% correct decisions. I think it's soccer's it's like basketball. It's a free-flowing game.
Yeah.
Stoppages hurt the game. So if you keep stopping it, and that stoppage is for 2, 3, 4, 5, or even longer minutes, then that's just, we might as well start having timeouts and stuff like that in there, and it just changes the game. But obviously they get most of them right because they've got 2, 3 minutes to look at it and from different camera angles that the referee doesn't have.
But Alex, is that 93% of the calls they reviewed? What about the calls they didn't review or didn't choose to review? Now, as I said, I'm a Man City fan, so I get a little biased on some things.
Yeah,
but
no, actually, that was reviewed. That was reviewed, Barry. So
Man City and Liverpool.
Yeah.
I don't believe they reviewed the handball by Trent Alexander-Arnold in the first that led to their first goal. His arm was out wide. It hit him on the arm, and then there was 2 things involved. They didn't say review that, or didn't appear to review that. Then the ball went down the other end, and they scored right away.
Oh, I remember.
It also brings the other rule into play. Did that hand lead directly to the goal? And then they say because the Man City player actually touched the ball during the move, that takes away the leading the goal, which there's no way that goal would have been scored without that hand. So again, it's all subjective. So you're doing a call where, so they're saying they got that wasn't reviewed, so that call was never part of that 93%.
Well, okay. Let's talk about this, and because another thing that I really think needs to be done, and that is how many reviews should you have? What should be reviewed and stuff like that. Well, what about taking? I'm not 100% clear how they do it on tennis, but each player has a set number of reviews they can use, and it's the same in the NFL. In the NFL, they've got 3 reviews they can use. So you've got to decide when you want to use them. You can't be reviewing every single thing because it'll be stopping the game too much. And maybe they should have something like that where, if there's an offside decision, are they, and they want to argue it because they scored, are they going to use one of their reviews if they think, well, geez, I think that was offside. I think the linesman got it right. That would then stop that thing being reviewed,
right?
Unless he threw his flag. And you got to conserve your reviews. So I don't know.
That would take Mourinho out of the game in 5 minutes, mate.
Why? He'd use them all.
He moans about everything, don't he?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't see it.
But see, that's the tactical thing. Correct. Is now I've got X number of reviews. Let's just say it's 3. I've got 3 reviews. So I'm only going to use these for important things. Critical things, and so that's going to limit the number of reviews in a game. I think. I don't know, but I think
the other thing I don't understand is they deliberately go on after a goal to look for reasons to disallow that goal.
Yes, well, that is
the thing that is weird to me. If you watch rugby, when a try scored and it could be one way or another. The official turns around and in front of the whole stadium and on TV, turns around to the video referee on a microphone that everybody can hear and says, did he put the ball down correctly? Was he offside? And they'd look for something specific that official thought he'd seen. And everybody can hear him talking to the official, and the official reviews it and talks back to him, and everybody knows exactly what's going on. There's not some guy in a room looking at the play going, oh, his toe might have been offside. There's lots of other body parts they mentioned that could be offside, but they're looking to cancel out goals.
Well, and the other thing to that, Barry, that gets back to the first change I suggested, which is the referees made his call. Now the review, if they're going to review it, has to be done in 1 minute. And if you can find clear evidence that the referee's decision is wrong, then you overturn it. If you can't find clear evidence within a minute, then it sticks, and that's the way it is, and then we get on with it. Because you could, like you've used those examples. They've looked at stuff for 4 and 5 minutes, and they've found that a guy is a millimeter offside with his elbow or his pinky finger or his heel of his shoe or something. and then that takes away a goal. And I don't think it's right to do that. I agree with you, Barry.
I think Villa had, was it no Wolves? I think had one disallowed. It might have been the Wolves Villa game. I think it was Wolves had it disallowed it against Villa, where the guy was running back from taking the corner, and because his foot had come up at the time they decided the ball was played, so he was in the running motion, his heel lifted up, and that's when they stopped the play. If his foot had been down, he would have been onside by this much. But because his heel was up, he was offside by this much. And it was like, how do you know the ball isn't played and it stays on your foot for a while? And the guy, they're drawing a line and then stopping a video by one frame, and it's a human that's doing it. It's not computerized. Right. It's not, there's a human drawing a line where he puts it on, and he could be 1 pixel off, 1 pixel on. Right. And then they're also stopping it when they think the ball is played. Well, that ball compresses on your foot and then goes off as well.
You're absolutely right, Barry, because there's been a few times where they've clipped it where the player's striking the ball and then looks at the player that's maybe in an offside. But like you say, that ball stays on that foot until the ball has gone through the follow through. And they're not looking at that. They're looking at that very first clip. And I think it's them little things that people that are in the game, it just drives us nuts because they're not even picking the right moment to freeze.
Yeah. And even if they stop it when the ball's fully on the foot, it's still, the speed these guys move and the speed the thing move, one frame isn't time enough to be able to do that. And should the game be played in slow motion and frame by frame? I would say to your thing, you have to watch it at full speed. And if it looks like there's a problem, then it isn't. Stop slowing it down frame by frame. When there's a red card calls and some of the tackles, they look way worse when you do it frame by frame.
Yeah,
that's bad. I think the one that jumps out, and I'm going to be biased here, was the Aubameyang red card, where they replayed it and played it probably a dozen times, and every time they played it, Barry, like you said, on the big screen, you could hear the crowd kind of like oohing and ahhing, and he got a red card. And it was a couple of weeks later, the Spurs player, Giovanni, went after a Chelsea player, and there was actual intent. Mm-hmm. You could see it on his face. You knew he was going to take him out, and the guy stayed on the field. And I think it's that if you're going to review something, it's still going to come down to human error. And it's like, I thought the VAR would be good for violent conduct, issues that players were deliberately going out there and trying to hurt players. And that was a situation that had been relived 2 weeks earlier, I think, and was just let go by.
Yeah.
Well, so let's look at problems with VAR, which is what we've done so far. Let's get all the problems out of the way. What other problems do we have with VAR? What drives you nuts with it?
Well, one, it's the inconsistency of the final decision.
How many VARs do they usually have in a game? 1, 2, 3? Average, would you say?
It all depends on the game. Man City Spurs had, I think, 4 in about a 5-minute spell, and that 5 minutes took about 15 minutes to play. So in that game just before,
do they review every goal?
Technically, there's someone reviewing every goal.
Yeah. The game's continuing. That's the concern, Mike. Is the game continues. Supposedly, someone's doing a check. What happens if there is a career-ending tackle in that period of time? You got to think of the longevity of the players as well.
Explain that to me, because I saw that one time, and it might have been, no, it was a different game. I don't think it was a Man City game, Barry, because I remember my brother pointing it out to me. There was something happened on one end of the field. But because the game was continuing moving, they didn't review it. They couldn't review it until there was a stoppage. Well, the team went up the other end and scored. Then they went back and reviewed this incident, said it was a foul or whatever it was, and so that cancelled the goal out, and then it went back to that situation there. Well, there was probably 30, 45 seconds after the incident that they reviewed to the time they went and scored the goal. And so, that conceivably could happen for 2 minutes worth of play before they go back and review this. So that can't be right. How does that work?
Well, as Alex said, what happens? Violent conduct could come into play there as well. What happens if someone thinks something happens? There's going to be a penalty at one end of the field. They don't call it. They knock it down. The player's running through. He gets fouled. He stands up and he punches someone. They review it, and it was a penalty. Technically, that minute and a half doesn't work. So does he still get a red card for punching someone on the field, or did that not happen?
No, that's interesting.
There's just too many things that don't lead to calling. I can understand goals to a certain extent, and I can understand some of the bigger calls. But that's why I think the referee should be there going, hang on, I didn't see it well enough. That could be a foul. It could not be a foul, especially on a penalty call when they're going to goal or something along that. Why doesn't he just stop it and have a quick look? So I think speed of the decision is one of the biggest issues. And you said that right from the start.
Yeah.
That's one. So who makes the call is the other.
Well, let me just ask this. What about, so on one hand, you could have, like I said, where the referee's call stands unless the review clearly overturns it. But that would be different because that's the other one is a little bit like rugby. What you're saying is, so let's say the ball's bouncing around in the box, and I guess they would only do it if a goal is scored. But a goal is scored, but they're complaining that somebody handballed it, and so it shouldn't be allowed. So the ref should then be able to say, okay, go check to see if somebody's handballed it. Is that what you're saying, Barry?
Yeah, if he thought maybe, so maybe someone takes a shot, it hits someone on the hip or the hand or the arm, goes out for a corner. Couldn't he message quickly to someone and say, hey, before we take this corner, could you have a look and see if that was handball or if it did hit his hip? I'm not sure.
Okay, now the only thing I have with that is that's a little bit different than the way the NFL do it, which is the way I like it, is if the referee doesn't see it and doesn't give a foul or doesn't give the handball in the first place, then it's not review, because what you're saying is, okay, review that and decide if it happened or didn't happen. I think it should be, okay, the referee has given it this way, have a look at it, and if it's clearly the other way, then let's change it.
That's what they're doing now, but
because right now.
But that's what they do. The guy supposedly watches the whole game. Now, when you've got one game at 7:30 on a Saturday morning here, and there's only one game going on, that's fair enough. That one guy can see that. What about when there's 6 games going on at the 10 o'clock kickoff, the 3 o'clock kickoff in England, and there's 5 games going on? How does one guy watch all 5 games? And see all
they don't have one guy watching all 5 games, surely.
Yep. There is a video ref at one location, and I believe he's the same guy doing all the games.
I'm not sure about that one. Yeah,
I would find that hard to believe. It wouldn't surprise me with British football, but
they have a TV studio at Stockley Park where they sit the referee and he watches the game.
They've got to have at least one guy watching each game, surely. But,
they don't have enough. They're all refereeing games because it's the same referees. By the way, it is the same referees who run the VAR. It's one of the referees who's not refereeing a game that day who is now checking on his associates and compadres and deciding what call should have been made. And he's now overruling one of the guys he works with.
Is that because
that way? Germany actually sends you like the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, where they say, go and watch it at the side of the field and you decide.
Right. But I think going back to what you're saying, Barry, is that because maybe every game is being videoed and taped at the same time? So when a review request comes in, it's as easy as them just clicking onto that game and then doing like a 10-second or a 15-second recap. Because I can't imagine that person's got, 3 o'clock on a Saturday. They're overwhelmed, aren't they?
Well, there'd be 5-6 games normally.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I understand it. Anyway, let's put it that way.
Well, it'd be interesting to figure that out. I would be surprised. I would. Nothing surprises me with the British football, but that would surprise me, I guess. But
I mean, the other question is why couldn't the fourth official be watching a monitor on the sideline? All he does the rest of the time is argue with the two coaches. So why not actually give him something to do instead of standing there admonishing coaches like children for standing too close to the field?
well, okay. Here's another point then, because to me, I think this is I don't know exactly how you would manage it, but you go and look at games from the 80s. Were you back home in the 80s, Barry?
I moved here in 82, 83, something like that.
Oh, okay, but anyway, but you go watch games from the 70s and 80s. It's almost like pedestrian speed. Now it's the players run faster, they run further in the game. There's just more athleticism and speed, and that is harder for the referee to manage because it's so much faster. Your brain's got to make those decisions quicker. So what about adding more refs to the game, more officials to the game, or on the field, or I don't know how you would manage that, because we used to have indoor soccer tournaments where we'd have two refs, and there'd be a foul somewhere, and both refs would blow the whistle, and one would be pointing foul that way and one would be pointing a foul the other way, which was hilarious. But maybe you can figure something out where you've got one major ref and the others. I don't know.
Ice hockey does it because it's not so fast.
They do.
Ice hockey went to two main officials and two linesmen, and they all have their own, give linesmen or assistant referees more authority to do things. They have it technically, but they don't seem to do it. Almost push them doing more to see things off the ball, that type of stuff. But I'm always in favor. If you have two referees, then you're going to get twice as many bad calls.
Well, how do they do it in hockey? Do they have one ref has got his own half and the other's got the other half, and he makes one referee makes a decision in his half? Because, like I said, when I was doing indoor soccer, you'd have them going diagonal across the field, but they would both blow and both make a decision, and sometimes it'd be the opposite decision. So that was crazy.
I still think, and I know Alex was nice to referees earlier, I still think one of the issues, it does come down to the quality of the officials as well. And that's, I can remember playing many times indoor with guys who also refereed basketball, baseball, football, and they were there for the money, not for the good of the game. And we grew up with guys who were there for the good of the game and actually understood the game more. And when you said, Alex, earlier about the Spurs player actually going for the man, I don't understand how a Premier League referee gets to where he is and doesn't see the difference between an accident and a deliberate attempt.
Right.
And I see that
Mike, I think you hit on a note there, because if you look at the game, obviously the game is so fast now. From a spectator standpoint, that everybody's moving so fast. But you look at the average age of the referees, most of the referees are beyond what we would call a playing career as a player. So one, is there a little bit of an issue with them keeping up with play? Linesmen don't really call. They wait for the referee to give them a kind of an insight of where they think the ball should be gone. So their hands are tied. And I think that's the whole frustration of everything. You got players, making, 100-yard sprints at Olympic speeds. And you got this poor referees trying to catch up, and it's the same with the ARs. I mean, it really is. When you see them live, they are flying.
Well, do you think it's worth exploring having more refs, more officials?
Well, we had what were the referees called in the European games on the goal line that were off the field? So you had your ARs, you had your referee, and you had your two guys at each end. And even they weren't even making decisions. It was almost like a calamity.
Well, but you know what though? In any sport where you're making subjective calls, everybody complains. In the NFL, everybody complains that this was holding, it wasn't holding, or that was a bad call. So I think you're gonna get those, and we all three of us have played and watched football all our lives. And we can all complain about games in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and the ref was useless, the ref was worthless, it was a nightmare game. But that's going to happen. It doesn't matter whether you got one ref or five refs, I don't think.
So
yeah, and that is part of the game. I mean, maybe that's our problem, is we don't embrace them. No game of any meaning can be played without a referee.
Do they in the English Premier League, are their refs full time yet?
Yes,
they are now. Yeah,
they finally come into they finally decided to spend some of their billions and then make the rest full time.
I don't think they're getting rich. They're well off, but they're not getting rich. So, and you have to have done so many games, so you're not going to get young referees. You're going to have to be 40 by the time you've done enough games and had the experience to get to that level, because the referee system means, just like here, if you haven't done so many youth games, you can't do a high school game, you can't do a college game, you can't do a pro game. Well, that automatically means you're getting old.
Well, if there's more refs, then they don't have to run as much. Like basketball, basketball, they have two refs, don't they?
Three.
I think three. Do they have three?
Yeah, in NBA they have three now.
Did they really?
Because they can't keep up with it. That they are, as you said, so much faster. Yeah.
But what about this then? Okay, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. This is not a plan. This is not something I've thought of before. So what about you have a ref behind each goal? I know they did that in the Euros, but you have a ref behind each goal. His job is to watch for fouls and stuff in the box, because there's a lot of bodies in there. So that's because don't worry about goal. We've got goal line technology to decide if it goes over, but he's watching from the back view, any fouls, pushing, anything like that. You have a linesman on each end, just like you've got now. And then you've got two refs, one responsible for each half. And if it's not in your half, then you could be watching other stuff, maybe off the ball, stuff like that. I don't know. That would make things a little bit easier, surely, don't you think?
So you're looking at five referees in a sense. Then you've got the referee that's trying to control the two managers. That's six. So you've got six people trying to figure out whether someone.
But the NFL has how many? The NFL has a crew of like 8 or something, don't they? I don't know how many they have.
But they all have one job to look at one specific part of the game.
Well, now I think the NFL, I don't think it's imminent, but I know there's people have mentioned it, because the NFL is getting faster and more physical, is that they're thinking of having more officials, so that there's like one official for each matchup. So you've got 11 players on each side, all against each other, and you've got one player, one ref or umpire, or whatever they call them, watching each matchup of players. So that that's all he's looking at is to see if there's a foul or call. Somebody else is looking at another matchup. So they're going to that level.
You're just going to end up with whistles blowing all the time and no plays actually taking place, because each official is going to think they have to do something and call a free kick. I don't think the game is that far away. I just think VAR might have done worse than better. I don't think that, and I joked a bit, I don't think the refs are actually that bad.
Well,
since Howard Webb left Man United, we've been okay.
Yeah, you've never done as well since he left, Barry. I think that was part of the downfall. So
they never replaced Howard Webb.
Yeah, but I've lost my train of thought now. I was laughing too much on that. Oh, getting back to the refs. I am actually sympathetic to the refs. I'm on the ref side. I think they got a extremely tough job with the speed that the game is played. It's like, it's like basketball. I don't know how they do. In fact, they do a bad job of it, I think. But, when they're jumping up under the net, fighting for the ball, and they call fouls, and it's like, well, I didn't see every jump ball would be a foul, depending on how you look at it. But the game is played so fast and it's so quick. I just think the refs have a hard job. I think they'd be better with more numbers, and I don't think they're ever going to get things perfect. But I don't think the VAR is a ref problem. I think it's the way they've implemented VAR.
I agree. So I also think if you're going to have like replay and watching things, why don't they allow the referees after the game to watch the game, and then they can go over their own red cards and their own yellow cards, so there's no appeal needed. The referee could watch the game and say, hey, I missed that one. I gave a yellow there and it shouldn't have been a yellow. Or, hey, this guy dived, I should have given him a yellow. And do it and have the referee assess himself and change some of his calls, rather than leaving it to an appeals panel or a club to argue with him. He could sit there and watch it quite easily and say, okay, the game's so fast, I thought this happened, that's why I gave this guy a yellow, when in fact he didn't do it.
So is that not in place, Barry?
Hmm?
Is that not in place now?
No.
That the referee goes, wow.
No, they will sit and watch his game. Like the officials get together and have classes and watch games and review themselves, but they can't change any calls or any yellows or anything else. Only through an appeals process. And you can't appeal yellows. You can only appeal reds.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I think that, if basically you're saying we're bringing VAR in to correct any errors that happen on the field for the players, as a result of a play. Why not do it afterwards as well? Yeah, I'm all in favor of that. Now this is getting off VAR a little bit, but what about? I've never understood. Maybe people have given me the argument, but I just don't go with it. I think referees should be interviewed afterwards as well. They should have a press conference afterwards, and they should, give their opinions on what happened and why it happened, because, they get like that guy who handballed it at Liverpool, and then they went up the field and scored. I would want to ask him and say, okay, why did you not see that? Or did you see it and just didn't think it hit his hand? You tell me why you didn't want to give a video replay on that, and explain that to me. I would want to do that.
I think rugby, when you see a rugby game and you've got guys that are, they're really going after each other, and you've got a referee that's talking to them in the most polite manner and explaining the rule, explaining their decision. And you've got guys, they're out to get each other, and they're like, all right, ref, we got it. And it's controlled. And then you look at soccer, it's almost like a gentleman's game, and it's mayhem.
Yeah. For a long time, I haven't understood when they surround the referee why he just doesn't go boom, 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 go away.
Barry, it kills me, mate.
I remember one time a ref, I think it might have been a World Cup game, I'm not sure, that, they've got the wall set up on the edge of the penalty area, and they kept inching forward, and he'd send them back, and they kept inching forward, so he went, yellow card, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. And then they changed the rule. You only give one person in the wall a yellow card now.
Yeah.
Not the whole wall. And I think it was after that. But I agree. I just say I'm all in favor of that. So
the respect on rugby players for the refs is immense. Really
is.
Yeah. But he's talking to them all the time, and you can also hear it on the TV.
Right.
You can actually hear what the referee is calling and telling the players. So the respect goes both ways.
I love that about rugby. I just think it's pretty neat that the way he talks to the players, the way the crowd can hear it, the way that it's just they might do a bad, and these are 6'5" and big guys, nasty guys, and they physically go doing stuff, and they do something bad, naughty, and they injure that guy, and sin bin or whatever it is, and okay, fine, yeah, they just deal with it. There's no arguing. It makes a decision. There's no arguing, is there?
It's the respect, though, Mike. It's the respect of the game.
What about? Let's just get back to VAR. So let's talk about what do you think should be done? Do you think we should get rid of it, or if we keep it, how should we change its implementation? What do we do to improve it?
I don't see it going away. That's for sure. How they tweak it, whether it's like you said, you get maybe only three challenges per game, whether it's on goals only, whether it's I don't know how they're going to tweak it, but I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it's here to stay.
Well, what would you like if you had a choice? If you said, okay, I think it needs to be changed to this, what would you go for?
I think Barry brought up a very good point on the review of the game afterwards, especially on yellow cards or a player that got away with maybe no card or a yellow that should have been a red. I mean, when you see a violent conduct action, there's got to be follow through, and I think that's some of the game that maybe we as fans realize on the back end things are being done under the rules of the game. Yeah, that for me is kind of the one that really sticks in my mind is making sure that they are following up and it's not game over. We're moving on.
What about you, buddy? Would you get rid of it, keep it, or how would you change it?
I think it's tough because such a large amount of the game is subjective. So, early this year, they started calling the pools on the box for penalties. They gave about 3 penalties in the first 2 games and then stopped doing it.
Stopped altogether.
And it went back to what it was, mugging people in the box. So when you had a referee there, I mean, it didn't matter. You could see it. I mean, the referee was looking right at it and didn't do anything.
That drives me nuts, by the way.
So, and when you VAR that, surely they can see that as well. So if they're actually reviewing that, why is it not called? So you either need to limit way down to the calls that are made. The offside call has to become it was supposed to be clear and obvious. That was the word they kept using, clear and obvious. Well, then it became, offsides don't have to be clear and obvious. It's millimeters count, which is not what anybody wanted, not what anybody asked for. So make the calls, the non-subjective calls, put some leeway in there, like a 6-inch line rather than an inch or a toe. You're also supposed to be obviously trying to gain an advantage. Well, if you're running back to your own goal, you're not trying to gain an advantage. So there's lots of things in there that mean that millimeter and those drawing of the lines on a screen to decide if it's offside is just farcical. I mean, that's not what the game is about. It should be obvious. And then on the subjective calls, we either need to go to a new handball rule that handball is handball, deliberate or not, or you have to start saying we're not going to review handballs or certain calls because they're subjective. I think a tackle or a foul can be a lot less debatable because you either kick the guy or you don't kick the guy. That can be seen. Whereas a handball, is it deliberate? Is it not deliberate? All those types of things. So I say we're not reviewing handballs anymore because it's up to the referee. That's his decision anyway. In the flow of the game, he sees something. And why should someone in the VAR room see something differently or not see something differently? Whereas a tackle, did you guys watch the Man City Tottenham one? I saw it because I did it. And in my view, Aguero wasn't fouled for the first. They did 2 penalties inside a minute where they let the play go on for about 2.5 minutes. They called it back and they gave a penalty for a foul on Aguero.
They did let the game go on for about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Sterling missed the first penalty.
See, that's wrong.
Sterling missed the first penalty, and Dyer came in and cleared the ball. And because it was Dyer who was already in the box following up, Man City retook the kick. Man City took it again. Sterling missed it again, but Lloris was about 2 yards off his line. But we don't review that. That's only an on-field call. Lloris then brings down, or Sterling dives. So then they review that. This has now taken 6, 7, 8 minutes. While they take both penalties, everybody argues. In my view, Aguero wasn't clipped on the first one. Sterling was clipped on the second one. And if he didn't, he dived. And he was already on a yellow, but didn't get another yellow. So 10 minutes of game went on, or time went on, with nothing happening, except from 2 missed penalties. A goalkeeper who was good 2 yards off his line when the penalty was taken, but the linesman missed that, and we don't review that. Even though that's an actual thing you can see, you can actually see when the ball is kicked and where the goalkeeper is, but that's not reviewable. And then the two reviews, everybody watching the game went, half the commentators went, well, that's a penalty, and half of them went, well, that's a dive. So why does it matter?
Yeah,
Let the referee call it.
That brings me on to one of the changes that I've mentioned here a couple of times already. The referee makes a call, and if it's reviewed, then you've got a minute to decide if it's clearly different than what the referee called. If you can't figure it out in a minute, then it's not clearly that different, so the referee's call should stand. We get on with the game. So that would be the first change I would make, which is just basically what the NFL does. And I don't know, I would probably just give each team 2 challenges. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's two challenges. Unless the referee asks for a review himself because he was unsighted or didn't see something that he think might have happened, then you've got 2 challenges, and that's it. And you decide when you want to use them.
Oh, you can decide when you want to use them. I was going to say, or 1 per half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I however you want to use them. I don't know if you do it per half or what, but you decide if you want to use them, because you concede a goal. Like I said, I used this example before. If you concede a goal and you thought, the player was margin, whether it was offside or not, you've got to decide whether you're going to use that or not if it's early in the game. Right. Now, as it stands right now, they would review that, and it might take 2 or 3 minutes. Well, if you're the manager, you've got to think, well, geez, they could even cheat. This to me is cheating, but it's legal cheating in the NFL, because they have their own coaches in the offices watching the game, and watching the replays and phoning down and saying, no, that it wasn't a foul. Don't challenge that. Yeah. Well, that's fine. I think that's okay. Do that.
They have it on games. You see the guys watching the TV on the game on the benches in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But
so
the inconsistencies in the rulings and the way it goes, though. So a ball gets knocked over the top. Harry Kane, for the argument's sake, runs in and scores. They review whether he scores and whether he's offside. Harry Kane shoots. The goalkeeper knocks it past the post. It goes out for a corner. They knock the ball in from a corner and score. They don't review whether Harry Kane was offside on the ball going through. So he could have been well offside. Well, if he'd scored, it would have come back. But because the goalie saved it, it's now a corner, so we don't review whether he was offside.
Well, but you can't review. That's the thing, though, Barry. You can't review every call.
So stop. And sometimes stop reviewing most of them.
That I agree, and that's why if you give each manager 2 flags or whatever you want to do, that they got 2 challenges, then you're going to look at 4 max in a game, probably, and that's a max. They probably won't all be used unless a ref asks for one. And if we stick it to, okay, well, the ref didn't give offside on that, so we're going to review it now. You've got 1 minute to have a look at it. If it's clearly the opposite of what the ref said, the ref didn't give offside. So if it's clearly offside, then we'll change it. But if it's not clear within a minute, then that's it. It's done. Let's get on with the game.
It'll be interesting to see percentages of VAR being used in what we call the local derbies. The big games, the games that referees go to the game thinking, I've got to control this lot today. That would be interesting, because there's been a lot of big clubs playing some of the smaller clubs, and like Barry says, they don't get a call anytime.
Well, I just think that I agree with what you're saying, Barry. I just think it's overused. It's used at they take too long to look at it. There's got to be a limit in time, because if it takes you that long to try and figure out, then it's ruining the game, and we're better off just sticking with the referee's decision. That's better for the game, even if it's a millimeter wrong on the offside call. It's better to stick with the referee's decision and just look at it for a minute rather than analyze it for 5 minutes and find out it was a millimetre wrong.
And also, if I've paid £50, £60, £100 to sit in a stadium, why should I not know what's going on? The guys on TV are getting someone telling them what's going on. There's nothing open about the decision. There's nobody telling them why it's being reviewed. And for someone to sit there and to start watching a play to see if they can find something that should be reviewed during that move seems wrong. It should be, we are looking for this specific incident where we thought this happened.
Do the stadiums back home have the big screens in there like they do here?
I think there's 2 or 3 stadiums in the Premier League right now that don't. I don't think Bournemouth have a screen, and I don't think there's somebody else that doesn't have a big screen, I think, at the moment.
But most of them do, yeah.
Well, they should be. I agree. They should show it on the screen of what the VAR guy's looking at.
And how about, like they do at rugby, have the conversation between the official and the VAR official be open so they know what they're saying, rather than it being some hidden agenda.
Yeah, that would be tons better, because
that's what they do at rugby, and it works. I'm looking for this.
It takes the frustration out of it for the fans as well, because they're getting frustrated for 2-3 minutes waiting for it, and then the result comes and said, okay, it was a foul, and well, why? What didn't look like a foul to me? Why? And you're right. If they were to hear that discussion and see the replays, then they would know, okay, that's why he called a foul. That's what he said. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I think unless there's anything else, have we missed anything on VAR? Is there anything that we've missed that we want to add before we finish?
Apart from the fact that Liverpool seem to get every call, but yeah, other than that. That was just to get you a few people commenting on it was that guy that said about Liverpool.
I think I'm like you, Alex. I think VAR is here to stay. They're not going to get rid of it. But I'm just astounded that they've just managing it in the way that they do now. It is absolutely atrocious. I'm on the referee. I'm on the referee side. I just think they've got a hard enough game. Yeah, there's some referees better than others, and yes, referees make mistakes. But in general, they've got a tough job out there. The game played at that speed. But VAR is just the way they've got it set up. The NFL never had this problem when they brought it in. No. Never. They've got issues with it,
Yeah, but it still goes to the main official on the field making the decision. He still gets to make the decision. You've seen referees walk off the field arguing with the players, going, "It's not me. They told me in my ear. They told me in my ear that's the call." He can't even explain to the players what the call was, because he doesn't know.
Yeah. Even when you watch Sky Sports on the Monday after football, and you've got the pundits asking the referee advisor about the actual calls, and they can't even agree there.
No.
And we're talking about 24 hours after a game. It's amazing.
Yeah. You saw that picture, Mike. I showed you a picture earlier year before. I was in meeting with the Premier League. One of my buddies works there, and Mike Riley was in the hotel with us having drinks. And my buddy just kept looking at me going, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything." And after a couple of beers, I had to say something. So he was actually quite a nice guy for a referee. But he was, I honestly don't think they can. They put their own referees in a worse situation by doing this.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
And it's hard enough. I pick on them, and I used to like to yell at them and shout at them when I was coaching and playing as well. But it's a tough job,
It is. I've tried it. I've been on the field. What I tend to do is just watch the game go along, and there's fouls, and it's like, okay, carry on. I just don't. It's a hard job, referee. I do. I just get engrossed in the game and forget that I'm supposed to be officiating the game. So I know it's a tough job. But I just think that football is so fast and athletic, and you've got such a big space. You've got 110 yards by 80 yards or 75 yards or something like that. Asking one guy to cover that space and make all the decisions, to me, just is hard job that needs changing. And I think that football, you've mentioned this a few times, Barry. There's so many subjective calls that you've got to limit the number of times you can review, because they're subjective calls. There's plenty of times, like Alex, you just said this, when on the Monday after, when the referee advisor is given in there, he can't tell you why a call was made. It could be 50-50. So there's plenty of times where there's challenges and fouls and stuff like that 10 people in a room, 5 could see it as being a foul and 5 could see it as not being a foul. So trying to review everything like that is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Right.
So, all right, guys. Well, let's call that a day. Hey, while I'm here, I want to ask you one thing. What about doing another one next week or the week after? But this time it'll be kind of related to this, on players diving, players cheating, and stuff like a little bit like that, because that has been a bugbear for me for more than VAR for years, and I've got lots to say on that. So how about doing that?
Sounds
yeah,
good.
fine. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I will end this, and we'll talk again.
See you, Barry. Take care, mate.